something imagined or something wished. The faith, the hope. You wish for it. You imagine it. There's something in mind going on when they discourse on this subject of faith. What else could Moroni have said if he had used any of the Semitic or the Egyptian words for faith, except that it is something that we hoped for? That's the meaning in the language of the words. And that's exactly how Moroni expresses the faith, hope, and charity. The faith, hope, and charity. If faith is the keynote of Moroni's whole commentary on the Book of Ether, it's also the keynote of the Messianic religion. And before all things, the Messianic religion is a religion of hope. Of course. The Jewish Messianic concept is based on hope. Isn't that true for all of us? It has always been that way from the ancient times, as far as that goes. So of course they're going to call it faith, hope, and charity. It's not simply a plagiarism from Paul. When we explore the actual context of the language, the words they use itself, and their meanings and their cognates, it's all faith, hope, and charity anyway. There is no other way to express this. So, of course, it properly expresses it correctly. The scrolls, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Much of the materials in the Apocrypha. Interesting, the Apocrypha did not mean spurious or questionable scripture. It meant it was so sacred that it was kept hidden from profane eyes. Our modern categorization of canon, Apocrypha, pseudepigrapha, Robert Kraft, several other scholars, James H. Charlesworth, Andre Orlov, Margaret Barker, Hugh Nibley, from the Protestant traditions, Catholics, Joseph Fitzmyer, from the Mormon traditions, Hugh Nibley, now Royal Skousen, everybody acknowledges that our modern definitions are wrong. So when we quote other outside scriptures besides the Bible, that's because in the ancient world, all of their writings were considered sacred. That's a fascinating concept, isn't it? It was much broader, much more open than what we allow today in our world. But if we're going to study the ancients, we have to approach the scriptures from their ancient understanding in order to understand why they said what they said, and how they said it, and so on and so forth. If you want to understand the ancients, if you want to critique them from a modern view, the Bible really sucks as good English literature, just exactly as the Book of Mormon does. We know that, but it's not meant to be English literature. It's ancient Hebrew and Egyptian prophetic discourse. Once you take it to the ancient world and compare the literary characteristics, it fits beautifully. Yes, it sucks as English literature, but it wasn't meant to be English literature. Well, anyway, the book of Hebrews, aside from being the most baffling and mysterious piece in all of the scriptures, it's also the most apocalyptic, as the Hebrews chapter 11 notes. It's very interesting. In the apocryphal tradition, it runs through the last of the elders of Israel, of each of the ancient dispensations. You have Abel, Enoch, Noah, Abraham, Joseph, Moses, and Christ, showing how each lived by faith. And because they lived by faith, they hoped for things, then they received things from heaven. In the same way, Moroni reviews the world's history in terms of faith, precisely like the Hebrews did, because that's how the ancient Jews did it. Boy, the Dead Sea Scrolls, they did the same thing. They brought in the Nahum, they brought in Habakkuk, they brought in the Psalms, they brought over Isaiah. They put it all together, and then they discussed it. This is how they did it. They review history in terms of faith. That's why the Book of Mormon does the same thing, because that's how the ancient Jews did things, with their scriptures and their version and understanding of history. They show that men must live by faith in the hope for things to come. This was the pre-Messianic era. So, in hoping for something, wishing something, we wish redemption. We want the Messiah to come. We hope he does. It's been prophesied and promised. We have hope, faith, and charity. That's the only possible manner that they could express this, using the language and their philosophy of history as a series of faith dispensations. In the same way, all the Apocrypha, it's huge in an ancient literature. I mean, it's far bigger than our entire Bible combined. It's gigantic. All of the Apocrypha in the ancient literature, far older than either Paul or Moroni, all of that treat this as their standard theme: faith, hope, and charity. Because that's how the ancient peoples thought. And the Book of Mormon taps into that. It expresses, in ancient terms, the philosophy. No wonder it sucks as English literature. But it's beautiful ancient literature. There is a difference. So when you hear someone criticize the Book of Mormon, oh yeah, that's horrible literature. Thank you. It better be. From an English standpoint, the Book of Mormon better be horrible English literature. That's not reflecting 19th century America. It's beautiful, ancient Hebrew literature, however. So our critics actually give us the key when they criticize the Book of Mormon from a literary standard. Very interesting. Well, anyway, all of the writers of the ancient world have the same conception of history, religion, and politics. Is it surprising that they should have the same ideas about faith, which is the cornerstone of the entire doctrine anyway? Of course not. You betcha the Book of Mormon matches the Bible and the Dead Sea Scrolls and the ancient apocryphal literature. It's supposed to. That's the era, the world, the background, the culture, and the philosophy that it originated from. That's the point. Isn't that fascinating? Anyway, the scrolls in the Apocrypha are just beginning to show us what the Book of Mormon describes so fully and so well: the complete engrossment of the righteous folk of Israel in a religion of expectation. They didn't view this. They didn't have this overall understanding from our viewpoint that, oh yeah, it's already happened. No, they were looking forward to it. That's why the Book of Mormon claims we keep the law of Moses. We know it's the lesser law, but we keep it anyway because it points us toward Jesus Christ, the Messiah. We have a hope. Therefore, it's not a waste of time, it's not a waste of energy, and it's not the wrong religious observances and rites to utilize this law of Moses to take us toward our hope, the Messiah. The Book of Mormon has that theme powerfully until Jesus came. And from 3rd Nephi on, the context shifts. Their perception changed, and it is reflected in the Book of Mormon language as they looked back. The contextual analysis of the Book of Mormon shows it to be beautifully in context, with the correct emphasis on the right themes that ancient Israel labored to understand for herself. The Book of Mormon reflects that. It doesn't reflect the 19th century American concerns at all. It has nothing to do with Joseph Smith's day. It has everything to do with the ancient Jewish concept of salvation, faith, hope, and charity of the Messiah.